that you don't have to be a dumb knuckle dragger who doesn't understand nice things. You can be dangerous and powerful and strong, and also understand beauty and art and music and all that too. And that's, I think, something so important, and it'll add so much more to people's lives.
All right, I'm sure you'll appreciate this or enjoy it. Let's go down that rabbit hole for a minute, okay?
Okay.
You referenced Russell Crowe and us as American, film studios having to go beyond our borders to find men with culture and balance and theater and all these things to play our superheroes and our characters, right? Is Do you believe that that's a problem in our schooling system? It starts there. In other words, like you suggested, hey, if you're going to be a boy, you got to go play football. You can't go and be theater. That's not for boys. And now what we've done is we've gone the extreme, where we've got young men feeling like they have to act like women to fit in because we've completely skipped over it's okay to be in theater and learn music and be cultured as men.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd blame the schools. I don't know if that's where it starts, because there's also, I mean, obviously Hollywood is that way, and,
Sure.
and there's so much culture that, like, American men are just, like, being masculine is just being a dumb thug. And if you're theatrical, then you're like kind of a city boy.
Yeah.
And to be gentle about it. So I think that we need to be able to encourage that balance. And the thing is that, like I said, men created all this culture. There is so much masculine culture out there. And I think maybe there is a thing in schools that maybe because there's that culture of common feminism and so forth that discourages, this evil patriarchal art.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they, read Shakespeare anymore in schools, but, when you think about, like, Henry V and all these great plays that are very masculine.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, there's so much out there. The entire history of the Western world, we have all these plays, we have all these things that poems. Men lost poetry. After 1900 or so.
Right.
Where we had your Rudyard Kipling's and men wrote all the poetry. I mean, going back to Homer, and Homer. I mean, there is no more. There's masculine poetry. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that men need to be encouraged to embrace that very masculine history that is also centered around beauty and art. The oldest story in the world, the Epic of Gilgamesh, or one of the oldest stories. I was reading through it the other day, and I'll write about something like this probably in relationship to bodybuilding. But it was, he was described as being beautiful. He's described as, he was also terrifying, but he was also described as being beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Because that was part of the package. Was the ideal person was also, it was not only terrifying and smart and whatever, but they were also beautiful. And so to aspire to that, I think, is in all the sectors, excellence in every aspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's where we need to push younger men to think about.
Yeah, and maybe I misspoke on the getting it from school. I guess I was thinking more culturally at an age, right?
Right.
Where you're encouraged to go down one lane or the other, but not the combination of the two. And what's interesting is I see men now kind of skipping over the blend of what seems to be important and just going far like, well, I'm just going to act like I'm very feminine and gay, and I'm going to put makeup on, although that might
Right.
not even be remotely close to who they really are, right? Because they're trying to blend in with what society's pushing.
Yeah, everybody wants to fit in. I mean, most people. I mean, I'm not good at that personally. I don't like to fit in. I've
Oh,
always
come
been a
on.
weirdo, but I'm comfortable being a weirdo. But most people just want to put their head down and be whatever everybody else is.
Yeah.
Nietzsche would have called them the last men. Who they just want to fit in, and yes, everything's fine. And maybe, I mean, there have always been those people, so maybe that's what just those people do. But if you're going to be extraordinary in life, that's not going to cut it.
Yeah. Talk about your discussions recently, and I know this is a life's work, but when you read your books, A More Complete Beast, Becoming a Barbarian, The Way of Men, you talk about the tribe of men, and I know this is evolving work for you. What are the current discussions you're having in that arena with your colleagues and friends? Is it the same, consistent, or are you guys evolving or having tougher discussions about where we're going as a society? As it seems like we're moving past some of the things you've talked about, unfortunately.
What you mean in the kind of broader men's movement?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I well, what's exciting about that is that when I wrote The Way of Men in 2012, it was just a bunch of guys who had bad divorces and were trying to figure out how to get laid, and or just some guy who went down a rabbit hole, and now you have these guys like Ryan Mickler, out there every day with huge audiences having that discussion with major figures. He's talking to congressmen
Yeah.
and actors and uh, men of really high stature, all seem to realize that there's a problem now. I think when you talked about this in like 2012, 2015, if you were concerned about men's issues, you were a loser.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you're just someone who can't make it. And now I think everyone realizes that there's a very big problem, and so men are starting to organize a little more, which of course is not desired by the forces that be, but it is happening. I mean,
Yeah.
I was on a conference call. We're putting together an event. Ryan and John Lavelle and a couple other people in Bedros, or we're all putting together an event, a speaking event, to see how that goes later this year. And there's so much opportunity uh, for these guys to get together and reach. They're starting to get very big audiences because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of men realize is their problem, and that's encouraging. It's very encouraging. There are groups of men getting together, say, "Hey, we need to talk about masculinity, and we need to become better men."
Yeah. Yeah.
Big groups,
Yeah.
like to the point where like it's become a little competition of who has the biggest group, and like there's all kinds of groups forming everywhere. So, I mean, that's very exciting. And you can, as someone who's been in this space forever, I could be mad that it's not like I'm not in charge of everything, but really, it's if you're going to have something grow and actually change society, this is what has to happen.
Yeah.
And so it's very encouraging. The world is not encouraging right now, but what a lot of these men are doing is very inspiring and encouraging.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I saw that you were on a trip with both John and Ryan, and I was envious for a moment. Like, damn, I wish I was there. But because
I don't know how I got invited to the cool kids club, but
Well,
I did.
look, Jack, I think that you're somebody that people look at and go, hey, this is a foundational element of who we are and what we want to become because you've been doing it for so long. You've been unwavering in your position, right? Ryan and John have had careers, and now all of a sudden they're taking a stop in that going, wait, and fortunately, for whatever reason, their numbers have progressed, rapidly, right? But, and by the way, if you're listening, all of a sudden you just got into the middle of this conversation, what Jack's talking about, this is a good thing for society. Especially if you read Jack's books and about, the protection of your tribe and being there and playing a role where everybody has a role to play. When I think about being a man in the family environment, like I want to take care of my wife and kids and make sure that they feel protected, right?
Right.
I've got my resources in my tribe, and I make an effort to have that. And it doesn't come easy, as you know, because you've been fighting to pull that together and find the right ones.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a hard thing, and like I moved a few years ago, and then you have to start it all over again.
Yeah.
You have to build all your new connections and networks and so forth, and it takes a lot of work to build male friendships, and you really need that around you. That's part of the component. You can't just be strong, take a couple classes, and you train, but you need to have connections with other men constantly, because you need that support structure for yourself. And it's hard as a man, especially the older you get, because it's easy. You get thrown in together in high school or in the military, and all your friends. Here's your friends,
Yeah.
But in adult life, you really have to make an effort and seek those people out and start those conversations. and then a year later they might be fruitful
Yeah.
because men want to trust each other.
Hmm.
They it takes a while to build men's trust, and they want to see what you're really about. Like they'll feel you out for a really long time, and do I want to waste my time on this dude? Is it like and so it takes a while. So yeah, I guess start now. It's like jujitsu. Like you always realize that you should have started 5 years ago,
Yeah.
5 years before you did.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So same thing with building, male friendships. You probably should have started 5 years before you did.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I've got a friend, probably a newer 8 months or so. He's a special ops guy, but he's not super connected to me yet. But he'll once in a while text me like, "Hey, Jim, how's it going? What are you up to?" Like he's filling
Yeah,
me out, like you said. Like, "Hey, are you still there? Are you still the person that I thought you were?
right.
Let's have a cup of coffee together and talk a little bit more." And you're right about that. Jack, I want to respect your time. Anything? I obviously talked about maybe this speaking engagement thing you guys are working on with John and Ryan. Is there anything else that you're working on that you want to talk about or push out? Because I've really just enjoyed watching your progress and what you've been up to.
Yeah, well, we haven't announced that conference yet,
Yep.
so I'm not gonna plug that
Yep.
just yet. But
Hold the fort.
that's still a twinkle in our eye.
Yeah.
But there's also like I'll probably speak at the 21 convention this year. But my main thing right now is I'm kind of doing the Way of Men is obviously 10 years old,
Hmm.
which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I wrote it 10 years ago, and I put together a hardcover version because I've never released a hardcover version. I want it to be simple. It doesn't have the men on the cover; they're on the inside. But like, I want it to be very like this is the Way of Men.
Hmm.
It blank, and so I have that out. You can order it on Amazon now. Unfortunately, the way that everything works right now, since the pandemic or whatever, is that everything works slower than it worked before,
Yeah.
and so it's very frustrating because you want to like promote something, and then you're like, well, you can get it, and then you order it, and then they might it'll take a couple weeks,
Yeah.
like it'll take a few weeks because they print hardcovers slower than paperbacks. So it's out, and eventually, when I get my copy that I've ordered, I will order a bunch and sell signed copies. But I
Awesome.
think it's really important uh, to have that book out as a hardcover. It's important for me because it's my legacy. It's the best thing I'll ever write. I think it was a very important book in historically, without like stroking my own back too much. But and I think it's still relevant, and I still agree with all of it, which isn't true of everything that I've ever written.
Sure.
But I think I still agree with it. And so I sat down this summer and wrote an afterword for it, change or not, and so forth. And that's new in that. And I also included Violence is Golden, and also like there was an essay that I did that got taken out of the book originally called No Man's Land, which you can Google and find for free. I've always had it online for
Mm.
free, but it was my research into feminism, and it was originally part of the book because when people try to write their bestseller, the formula is to like so and so said this in New York Times, and so said this, and then you summarize all these arguments and make your point somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And someone told me that wasn't the way to do it, and I'm glad they did. But I did do my homework. So that's all my homework, and it discusses feminism and kind of the attacks on masculinity going back to the 70s. And if you read that, you'll understand a lot of the frames haven't changed at all.
Hmm.
And so, because there's so many men who read things online for the first time, and they're like, "I can't believe they would say that," and I'm like, "Well, they've been saying that since the '70s, dude.
Right.
That's not new." So if you have that frame, I think you can engage with that content a little bit more knowingly.
Excellent. Now you have a great newsletter out. How do people get on that list? I read it whenever it comes out. It's very thorough and entertaining, and knowledge, a lot of knowledge there.
Thanks. I try to make that where I actually write
Yeah.
because people don't blog anymore.
Yeah.
So that's where I actually write, and so I write it for my newsletter. So I don't write basic newsletters like a lot of guys do. They like quick informational like bullet points. I write at full essays a lot of times. Yeah, that's what I give people for subscribing. So in case I want to sell them something sooner or later, I give them some free content.
That's
And
okay. You
so
know what? It's one of those things I sit down, put my glasses on, and I know it's going to be an interesting read. Like you said, it's not just a quick little blurb. I'm going to get something out of it.
yes. So yeah, to subscribe to that, my website is jack-donovan.com, or there's links through my Instagram, and I think there's a pop-up on my website now because I finally smartened up about that. And so you can subscribe